Okay. This right here didn't work. That didn't do. Okay. All right. So I'm streaming to, and good afternoon to anybody that may be coming in. This is Impromptu, and I am Tony Sawyer. This is my husband Clifton sitting beside me, and our co-host is Pastor Norman Armstrong from down here in South Carolina, and we're in North Carolina.
Yes, we got the Carolinas covered.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I am streaming, by the way, to YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram right now. And so you guys can see us in either one of those platforms. I had something that I found the other day, Pastor Norman, that I thought was so interesting. And it has to do with a depiction of Jesus through AI. And it will show us what Jesus really probably looks like, more than likely looks like. And I'm gonna let it run and see what you guys think about it. It's about maybe 7 minutes long. Let's see if I can get it to look a little clearer here. Look a little clearer here. Good, like that. Yeah, that's better. Okay, here we go. It's interesting.
A quick tour of the kinds of tools we're going to be using in this video. This is me.
For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son.
It's me saying John 3:16. But it isn't really me, is it? I mean, this is me. That's something else. And if you look close, there are digital hints that it is actually artificial. I mean, the weird way that the hat moves, the strange blurring around the mouth, there are clues. So technically, that's a photo I snapped a little while ago. I ran it through an AI bot that can make it talk. And just to prove that it's not really me, let's make it do something that I can't do.
כי התבורה נתונה ביד משה, וחסד ואמת ממקור ישוע המשיח יצאו.
Okay.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not with physical products. It's Amazon's other company, Audible.
So you get the point. Now, what if I wanted to get an idea of what Jesus actually looked like and maybe sounded like? It's not surprising that if you put the word Jesus into an image-generating AI bot, this is the kind of thing that you get. Good-looking guy, right? I mean, kind of too good-looking, if you ask me. I mean, if this guy was real and I met him in, like, say, a coffee shop, I wouldn't be able to make eye contact. Eyes that are those piercing blue pools of depth and wisdom. Also, he could have like a night gig as a hair model. Just, I don't know, something doesn't feel right. It doesn't fit the reality, and I think we all kind of know it, right? So I can confidently say that in the Roman world where Jesus lived, basically no one looked like this. If this guy showed up all clean, perfect hair, well-fed, with perfect complexion, people probably would have thought he was an angel. I mean, he's just too much. What could we change to get a little closer to what Jesus really looked like? Well, I started to change the input for the AI bot I was using to try and find out. Instead of just telling the AI to show me Jesus, instead I began to describe what a first century man from a fishing village might appear as. So first, sorry, but that hair. I mean, it's great for a romance book cover, but it's so impractical for a fisherman. And that's not to mention that the first depictions of Jesus in historical art had his hair short. Also, short hair was favored and even encouraged by Jesus' apostles in the New Testament, so it makes sense that a shorter crop would have been the dude that did the job, so to speak. Okay, so it's better, but he's supposed to be a Middle Easterner, right? So I don't think the blue eyes are going to work. Let's swap those out. Okay, that's a little better, but Still, his skin is so white, right? I mean, Jesus wasn't white. You know that, right? Jesus wasn't white. I mean, he wasn't white ethnically, but also people of his time were basically outside under the sun all the time. So his skin would be a pretty dark complexion. And for that matter, his features would be much more Eastern Mediterranean. And in addition, he would look older than the modern 33-year-old. And that's because we spend a lot of time inside, not under the sun. But being constantly sun-baked has that effect on your epidermis. So, okay, that feels more accurate. I think we're getting there, but we're still not quite there yet. Now, I know this might be a bit of a shock, but balding among Jewish men has a tendency to set in a little younger than some other ethnic populations. It's researched. You can look it up. So I'm not saying that Jesus was bald for sure, but by 33, it's reasonable to think that Jesus might have had some male pattern baldness setting in. Now, here's the kicker, and I know this is going to be difficult for some of you guys to see, but let's just pause the video and let's have him smile. Okay. So look at those great teeth. I mean, those are great teeth even in the modern world. And I hate to do it, but those aren't pre-dentistry ancient agrarian culture teeth. That's just not how they looked. So this would probably be more accurate to a first century mouth. Let's talk about Jesus's voice. In the movies, he always has this thick, buttery British accent. To give you an example, let's go back to hair model Jesus we had at the beginning to see what that might have sounded like.
For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him
Beautiful,
shall
right? I mean, I love it. I love a good British accent. But now let's try to get something a little closer to reality.
כי התבורה נתונה ביד משה, וחסד ואמת ממקור ישוע המשיח יצאו.
Okay, I think that's pretty good. There's a point to all this. Did you know that there is actually a verse that talks about Jesus's appearance? Isaiah said, from God's perspective, talking about Jesus, my servant grew up in the Lord's presence like a tender green shoot, like a root in dry ground. Notice this part. He says, there was nothing beautiful or majestic about his appearance, nothing to attract us to him. He was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with deepest grief. The Apostle Paul once wrote, Jesus was in very nature God, but did not consider equality with God something to be used in his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. So when Jesus arrived, he had abandoned his godly appearance, and he looked like an average man of that age. So I have a question for you. Would you have believed in Jesus if he appeared in this form?
What you think? What you think?
I love that. I love that. Like I said, it's funny that I just watched the Donahue YouTube thing where I'm trying to remember the actor who he did a movie, 30 minutes movie entitled The Second Coming. And he was the first person to portray Jesus as a colored man. So forth. And so they was talking about that on down here. I think that was like back in 1991, 92, somewhere around there. And I watched that. And then now you played that. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And we thought about, of course, we saw Jesus. He had some of those same tendencies and traits, but didn't look exactly like that. And one of the reasons I think that happened, and I think there are other people who have seen him and they didn't see him like that, which I believe that he really did look like that. I think he looked like that. But I believe he appears to people in the best, in a form that they can best handle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey guys, I didn't know you were here. I'm glad you're here. Linda said she liked the Jesus clip. Yeah. And because I do believe that he looked that way. I do believe he looked like that.
we're hoping that we don't forget it or get distracted. Show this again on Sunday morning
Yeah, we can.
because
We
I
can.
think it's real profitable for the conditioned mind uh, to be freed from.
Yeah, the illusion and the
Yeah,
fantasy. Yes, yes. And I and like I said, we saw him had the same similar eyes. Now we didn't see the detail that this depicted, but I'm sure that he appears to people in a form that they feel more comfortable with.
and that's true.
Mhm.
There was a young little girl that had painted a picture of Jesus. I don't remember the details of it, but I got a
Mhm. Mhm.
sensing that it was somewhat like this that she painted, but it
Mhm.
was more prone toward the skin being traditional, and I can
Mhm.
understand that.
White and
Yeah,
blue eyes.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
but
Yes.
yeah, I think so. But I do know that when we did see him, he from this point I could understand why he appeared to in his face. But I do know that when I looked at him, I was looking with my head kind of down, like looking over my glasses, and he was looking at me the same way I looking at him. Give an example. On our TV remote, we got the Amazon Fire Stick, and Alexia talked. So
Mhm.
yesterday, I was talking through the remote to get something changed on the station or on the television. And I don't know why all of a sudden I decided to whisper to her that were through the remote. I
Mhm.
said, I want Disney Plus. She said, I will whisper to you like you whispered to me, Disney Plus.
Mhm.
And it switched over. And I said, thank you. She said, it is now on YouTube. Yeah, I said, where are you? Uh, I didn't quite get that. Something she said,
Uh-huh.
got me. I like the fellow on the floor when she said, if you're going to whisper to me, I would talk to you from now on with a whisper.
It's funny because I do that with Siri a lot. I
Oh,
all
Lord.
kind of crazy questions and so forth.
Just-
It's amazing
yeah,
how
yeah.
it was funny one day. I said Siri. She said instead of saying good morning or good afternoon like she normally do, she
Mhm.
said what's up, and
Ah, ah,
I was shocked by that. What you mean what's up?
yeah. Now that's an example of how we get our identity caught up in sounds and things. But the reality was she was applying to me what I gave to her and
Yeah.
what
Exactly.
was needed
Yeah.
at the moment. But
Yeah.
she had to go back to her original voice by the way the computer was in the thing. One time I asked when we was in the car and the what a GPS system it was talking. I said, and I was two other people was driving in the front. I was in the back, and I said, "Watch this! I'm gonna mess with this girl on this uh, remote thing in the car. You GPS." I said, "Where are you?" I'm not allowed to tell you. I said, "You better straighten up, girl, and act like somebody can talk to you." I'm sorry, but I cannot respond to that. That's all they got.
Exactly.
I said, you
Exactly.
ought to be ashamed of yourself. And almost like you want to say for a while, I am not. But I got to mess with her so much, she just quit.
Mhm.
She just said, I ain't gonna talk to you no more unless you sound right. So it's the same way with spirit. It's like we work like this, like we say, I got to go to the Lord. You don't have to go to nobody because there's
Mhm.
not somebody somewhere at another time in another place.
It's just interesting to
Exactly.
me that this particular age that we live in now, this particular era, uh, all of we have the capacity to be rid of all of our uh, fantasies and illusions around God. We have that access to see what Jesus probably really did look like, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which would, for some people who have seen him with the long hair, blue eyes, and beautiful skin, and all of this, would probably not, like the guy asked, probably not want to follow him if
Exactly.
they knew he looked that way. And so, I mean, it's a very superficial thing, but at the same time, it has we have embraced that fantasy and that illusion for so many years. And so, like I said, I know Jesus, when he does appear, when that Christ does appear, it always appears to people in the form that is best suited for them. Like the little girl who draws the paintings, like you mentioned, she draws the most beautiful paintings of Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gorgeous, and they're so full of life, and but they're not what he literally looked like. But this is how he appears to her.
Exactly.
Mhm.
A child.
What's important, what you said, Ma, is this: us having the ability to do this, and how you said mention this generation or this age, it is an indication of the age or time that we're in, which we've been
Mhm.
talking about a lot, the age of awakening, the age of enlightenment.
Yes.
Because in times past, based off of oppressors, we have been conditioned to think a certain way. And
Hmm.
so whatever was presented to us or taught to us, we accepted it
Yeah.
without searching for the truth.
Right.
So,
Right.
so back then, people's minds were more closed. As we're evolving, our minds are becoming more open.
And it's because of the technology, I have to say, because of our technology, there is nothing now that we cannot find out.
Exactly.
And so ignorance is not acceptable anymore. There is no excuse for being
Right.
ignorant of anything because it's at your fingertips.
I remember a long time ago we went to researching into the history of Jesus and the Jews, and back during that time, they didn't have any way to. I mean, I guess if they had the teeth that need to be pulled, I guess they either fell out or
Yeah, they
they
didn't
either
have
fell out or
dentistry.
they
They didn't
put.
have dentistry
Yeah,
like
they
we do
didn't have
today.
no doorknob
Yeah.
to tie a string to it and snatch by slamming it, So
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus teeth. So
His
we
teeth
found
could not have been beautiful.
so we found out that they had some kind of stick or some kind of briar
That they would chew on.
chew.
Mhm.
When Jesus said we must become as little children, children don't think about brushing their teeth. You have to make them do it or show them how to do it. There was a little boy in school, and the teacher was had a question going around the class about everybody telling something about Jesus, what they know about Jesus. So she came to this little boy and said, one of the little boys, and I said, "Tell us something about what you know about Jesus." He said, "Well, uh, they put him, he was in court, and he went to court, and they accused him and convicted him, and he said then they end up crucifying him, nailing him to the cross, and they took him down from the cross, and they put his body in a cave and buried his body, and on the third day he had an erection."
I knew you was gonna say that.
I said, I said, "What?" She said, "Son, no." She said, "Not that. He had a resurrection. He didn't, that's the child's mind, and his conditioning made him say that." So when I was in class,
So what made you say that?
I didn't have no sense.
Mhm.
Crazy. So I'm giving you a drastic example of the mind when he said a child. Now, a child in that day with Jesus probably wouldn't have said that, but in our day and time, our children say all kinds of things, but they don't make it true,
Yeah.
But
Going back to the fact that we have access at our fingertips for all kinds of information, and some that you cannot prove, some you can. But at the same time, there's no excuse for.
you told me I was earthy, but Jesus was really earthy.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yes, very earthy.
Natural, real earthy in that time.
Mhm.
And I used to think Jerusalem was a big place. but he could travel around that place walking in a little no time, like walking around the block like we do, I guess. But they didn't have nothing to ride on but horses, so they had to have somebody to scoop up stuff, So it wasn't. I mean, I'm being drastic with you.
You ain't being drastic. You trying to make jokes.
No, I'm not. I'm just telling you what life was. And during that time when they took a bath, they didn't.
Well, we know this now.
Well, okay.
but making reference to what Dad was talking about concerning a child. Well, remember, y'all was talking about the inner child, and so of course, if we look at that, the inner child has a certain perception of God or Jesus or of a lot of different things, and so that's when we know that even with children, until at the point where they're conditioned, their mind is more open than those that have been conditioned, so they can see things or they can imagine things that we probably could imagine because
that's
we're
right.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about way back when we didn't have internet and all of that, and like when we were coming up, and our parents before us, they didn't have a source of information where they could go and get information or truth about these different things. So they had to accept what was passed down in old wives' fables and things that people, superstitions, all of those kinds of things. We've seen a lot of that. And then they came out with the encyclopedia. You remember that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. When they
were door-to-door salesmen.
Yeah.
Door-to-door salesmen go around from different neighborhoods selling encyclopedias. So anybody that had a whole set of encyclopedias, they were considered to be really on top of things. And so that was how we learned.
And here, when my Christ child was being conditioned and being raised or brought up in this modern age, during that time when I was little, I was raised up around wood and saws and nails and hammers.
You're a man of the
earth and more garden. And during that time, Pastor, I don't know if you remember it, there used to be people that had a business of dragging a sled around in the street with a mule to plow gardens for people. And
we used to do that down here.
Oh my God! Well,
in Charleston, we even have now where they have the horses and the buggies downtown Charleston. That's a big thing in Charleston where they take the people around on tours and stuff. So that still goes on down here.
And you know what? I wonder the condition that we deal with this dog. Dogs, her stomach didn't get a chance to spend much time eating bones and the trash and stuff out in the street.
So I think she's been too clean.
She's been deep clean. You know what I mean? And it's just been. And then when you give her a regular dog food, it tears her stomach up.
She's been de-germed.
She ain't no regular dog.
She's been totally taken out of the wild.
Yeah, so her little system can't handle what most dogs will handle.
She can't eat. You give her a piece of something with gravy on a piece of bread off with gravy. Her back end get tore up. I said, oh, she's going through it again. And before you know it, she stands there looking at you like you got a problem, not her. That's
and we do. And we do.
This is conditioning.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's the perfect example which y'all just shared with baby girl. In her normal habitat, she would eat differently, react differently, be totally different. She would be a dog. To be honest, even though she's a dog by nature, she's more human now because of the conditioning that y'all did with her.
That's right.
She's been de-dogged.
Linda said she doesn't have a computer or Wi-Fi or cable TV. But she's got her phone. She doesn't feel like she's missing anything.
Goodness.
You're not missing anything.
No,
you're not missing anything.
You can go back and look at it. Miss Linda. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I just hate you have to do that. I need to see you.
You have to do what?
Listen, I want to see you.
Listen.
Yeah, listen. Listen with the phone. Or she got a picture on the phone. Is that right?
She's watching us on her phone.
It ain't a big picture. See, Miss Linda, that phone ain't giving you
You saying we look better in bigger pictures?
Yeah, we look better in bigger picture, but work with it, Miss Linda. You can make it look good on a little bitty picture.
We're much more beautiful in bigger pictures. What he's trying to say.
Yeah, well, hey, conditioning. The Christ child was conditioned in my house to take a bath in a foot tub. And now, when you get in a house, you got a shower. Them conditioners make you look at the shower and think it's not right. When you're raised in a house with wood stove and you're cutting wood and putting coal, and then over in the night you call yourself banking it, your Christ child, this is what we talk about now, goes back to the Christ child condition. It has never been anything that he was conditioned with that revealed his true self. But now the Christ child is waking up. He went to school. And this is so amazing to me. People say, well, how do you see Jesus every day or the Christ in everybody? This is exactly the example what you saw about the picture of Jesus. We've been conditioned to believe from the Vatican and everybody else down the line of the different translations of books and Bible that Jesus spoke in the King James dialect. Mm-hmm. And he did not.
Yeah.
Now we're not on our soapbox about this, but it's at the same time, this is showing us more and more how the lie. Now I say this, I'm gonna say it right quick. The lie in the 11th chapter of John was that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. The lie was when they saw him die and he was put in that tomb and saw him come out, that was not truth. Truth was Lazarus never died. As an eternal being, he couldn't die. He was standing around with the rest of the people like we do at church and funeral home. I've seen in the spirit world the deceased walking amongst the family coming in with the procession. And I looked back over and I saw this guy and I said, well, we worship, here it is, we worship the space between each other. And we think that God is not in the space. So when we go into these buildings and churches, we're asking God to come, not personally in the building. We say we projected that, but we're asking God to come into our big lie. The big lie is, if I can feel him, he's here. If I don't feel him, he's not here. I'm not putting everything that we do in church to the curb, but it's time to wake up and just be real. People will lay hands on us, and because something has been psychologically said that we're going to fall, you should fall on your feet, you fall. I had one preacher I saw online. The lady was so amazed that this preacher could tell her things all about her life by a gift, and she dropped to her knees. And here's what the young man said: "Get up. You bow only to Jesus, and I'm not him." But at the same time, I'm sure he knew where Jesus was in his identity inside of him. But he had to tell her that because we worship the space in between each other, and the space has got to be filled with something other than truth. The truth of God is that the space is God everywhere, with or without a sensation or music or anything like the finite body. So we go to funerals. Ain't nothing wrong with it. We go to funerals and we worship our bodies, and that's an emotional thing. That tells me right there that something has not been fully implemented in the truth, like what we saw on that picture about Jesus and his geological identity. Mm-hmm. So now we're waking up. But here's another thing. We worship the space in our physical anatomy so much that we are actually believe that what we see in that mirror is the real self. Mm-hmm. That's now you don't have much to say about that, and the reason why is because I've been dealt with about the past. My mouth and my mind is a machine, and everybody else's machine that would be it can easily talk about the past. And when you're around people all the time that are in the past, before you know it, you'll be done jump back over into the monkey mind. You be done jump back over into the conditioned self, and then something comes up to pull you out of it. Now, here's my experience. I'm experiencing what it's like to not have anything to say, because I'm beginning to realize, and I heard Spirit say that to me this morning. He said, all I'm doing, all that's being done without your ego permission, is removing your attention away from the condition that you are a past memory conversation.
Yeah. I remember listening to Muji. We listened to him quite a bit. Spiritual teacher, sage. Um, he asked, the lady was talking to him about a portion of her life, and she was even talking about how that the day before that she had gotten revelation on something that he was teaching, and she was referring back to it, and he said to her, that was yesterday, what about today?
Oh yeah,
That's good. That's good.
That was yesterday, what about today? So when we realize, and I said this to Sweetie Pie this morning, when the mind goes back into the past, and it's important that you realize it is not you going back into the past.
no,
It's the mind regurgitating.
it is a you, but not the real you.
It is actually the mechanism regurgitating.
Yeah,
You remember back in the day when
I like that regurgitate.
they used to do all of the new seasons and episodes during the fall and winter months.
Mm-hmm.
And then during the summer, all you would get is reruns. You remember
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
that? And it's
They
not
still
like
do that,
that.
actually.
Yeah, it's kind of still like that. But you notice that when you watched it during the time when it was brand new and fresh, you really enjoyed those episodes. But when the reruns come around, you've already seen that, been there, done that, heard that. You don't have the same. So when conversations are carried out based on the past, when the tape of the past is running, that's not a true conversation.
Nope.
Now
Yeah.
we understand what it is now, Pastor, that is activated all over the universe. The computerized conversation at the dinner table.
Mm-hmm.
The computerized conditioning in driving our cars.
Oh, I mean, it's
a vast amount of things that have been implemented into the conditioned mind to keep people from waking up.
And it's usually unreconciled thoughts or I should say unreconciled events that have happened in the past that the mind keeps regurgitating.
Yeah.
They haven't been resolved. So it's like the event is still happening in the mechanism of the mind, in the psyche. It's still happening. So it regurgitates it over and over and over because there's no closure.
It's actually constant inertia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's no closure to it. And so the only way it can have closure is you can't go back to the event. A lot of the people that were involved in the event are dead and gone. Sometimes you cannot go back and do anything about it. So the only thing, if you can't kill the event, then you have to kill the one that's the
regurgitator.
Well, I want to say it a different way.
Well, the bringer upper.
If you can't kill the event, if you can't get rid of the event, then you have to get rid of the one that keeps recalling the event.
The gossiper. The mind is a gossip.
Yeah, which you keep describing over and over again. Who is the true enemy?
Yes,
and it's not what our imagination the enemy is,
or condition in the church.
So a key thing that y'all said earlier is that the greatest test or the greatest task is us learning how to operate in the now.
Yes.
Always be present. Don't go to the past. Don't go to the future, because that is the constant confusion. So you're not walking in peace or rest. If you're thinking about the past or the future, you got to learn how to exist in the now.
Remain in the present. Remain in the present. And see, a lot of what happens, the attractive factor, as you would call it, the attractive factor, is there are the good old days. The good old days, I was a certain kind of person. I liked being that person. And so I go back to that because I don't like the current person that I feel I am.
Mm-hmm.
Or the things were so bad back then, and they're not, like I said, they hadn't been resolved. So I keep going back to it and trying to fix it in myself, but none of that going back to it fixes it. So it's like the attraction to that comes because of who I believe myself to be.
I'm going to tell you something about us, the false us, and what it has done in experience. And this is the dying of the old man. We call it old man, or the dying to self. You're going to, ego going to go along with it or not. Eventually, everybody that is asleep in this dream, we're going to wake up. They're going to wake up eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And they may go through some of the same thing, and we'll probably go through some of the same thing that Carlton Pearson went through with others who haven't awakened. My life in the church world was no different than anybody else's conditioned self in the church world. But when that platform is snatched out from under you, and whether by permission of the ego or not, and this is what's going on with you also, and some of the others in other areas. One of the worst things I found out that a man could do in the ministry is to get attached to that identity so strong that when it's snatched out from under him at the age of 50, 60, and 70, maybe before the end, but I just pick it out right now, those figures and numbers.
Because that relates to you.
That relates to, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say the same thing.
I ain't old either. Don't be calling me old.
What's your thought? No,
So what happened is that the mind starts dealing with PTSD. See, it don't even want to talk about it now. It don't even want to admit it. It done looked at this thing like, I got it. I had it. I'm in a good place. I found out
what I mean, the good old days.
Yeah.
That's the attractive factor.
And hear this thing, Pastor. I'm going to tell you the truth. The question comes up, did I miss God? That's the mind talking. Where is God? I thought I was doing everything that when I got through with this, I wasn't going to ever really get through. I was going to just keep this thing going at the age of whatever. My old mentor said he was going to live to be 100. That joker didn't get nowhere close to it. He tried, but it didn't work. The Lord, not the Lord, but his true identity snatched itself out of his body. And but the only thing about it, brother, Pastor, all the mean things that you did to people and give or take a little, that's going to get you let me stop and say it like this, Pastor. What you're going through in this business of church is normal when you start seeing the truth that a lot of these people you can't get away from. So what the universe does is remove them for you. And you look back, they don't call you no more. They don't talk to you. And these are main liners in the church, They really was with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you, what Peter said. And Jesus said, watch it, old boy. Your mouth is overloading your back end, Peter, your loose lips sink ship. You saying something that seemed like it's true, but I guarantee you, if you go out the back door and call the dog won't come because he think you lying too. So you're gonna find out this is a trick. It's a trap in the ego world to make you think that for the rest of you, it's doing good too.
It's all the undoing of the ego.
It's the undoing of the ego.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And see, one of the things that people have to remember, dealing with Jesus himself. All right, because you keep making reference to what I know what's going on with everything and stuff like that. But
It's good.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So I'm good because of me being in the awakened state that I'm in. Let's think about Jesus. All right. Now, yes, according to the narrative, he selected some disciples to himself, but it was to get the message or the word or the insight, the revelation unto many abroad. Not just he wasn't trying to create a ministry for himself or
Right.
create
Yeah,
a
Right.
that's
He
church.
right.
he was delegating.
Exactly. It was
He's
about
delegating.
spreading. And so
Woo.
that's what we're guilty of.
Yeah.
We're guilty of trying to build these buildings and the institutions because it's the
Uh-oh.
ego. It's the ego that's being resurrected and not the spirit.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
that's where a lot of us are not understanding. So if we follow in the follow Jesus example, we won't be trying to do all of these different things that we're doing. You see what I'm saying? And thinking that it's the will of God. And so one of the things that I shared with someone not too long ago, I said a lot of things that we was a conditioned to do in our local churches like Sunday school, all these different convention stuff. I said, you don't find that nowhere in scripture. Nowhere in scripture. So you can't say that's a God thing. That's something that we implemented based off of what we internalize.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Here's a Christ child example. I say I'm talking about the Christ, it's the past. I'm an example when I say this. I know what it is. One morning I went out to the car. My daddy on the weekend had to pick up riders to take him to work. And my aunt who raised me, he had to pick her up. So I was used to hearing my Christ self, Christ child, but used to hearing grown folks say certain things to grown people. So I went out. My dad used to give me 50 cents every morning when he come by to pick them up for me to buy lunch at school. So I didn't have to get free lunches. I had money to buy it. So I come out to the car one Saturday and school wasn't open this weekend. I said, actually about the 50 cent. And he said, I am not going to, he called my name, Clifton. I am not going to give you anything today. And that's it. But I didn't understand his Christ child was conditioned that during that time, they didn't make but $20, $50, $20, $30 a week, So I looked at him and compared to what my Christ child conditioning was, I come out and told him, I said, you ain't done nothing and you ain't going to never do nothing for me. He jumped out the car, and my dad about over 6 feet tall. He jumped out the car, and I saw him coming, Pastor. My Christ child was gonna get his butt beat in his body because his body, the mouth overloaded the butt, and he come out there, boy, and I run in the house, and you know what my Christ child did? Got up under and thank God the bed was high enough. Got up under the bed and washed his feet. He come in there to whoop my butt. And when he got like that, he didn't whoop your butt. He slapped you upside the head, But I got away from him. I stayed under that bed until I was sure he was gone. And Pastor, he went from one side to the other trying to find me. I couldn't. I had the bed. The word of God was the bed. It saved my soul from a butt whooping, Christ child butt whooping. So when he got gone, when I heard my aunt say, Frank, that's my dad's name, Frank, the boy told you the truth. But you don't, in them days, you don't give the old folks the bad finger, and you don't talk back to them because you make your days upon what the Lord thy God giveth thee to be short.
So you can count out long life, eh?
Yeah. So I cut some days off, but I added some days to my butt because I didn't get a whooping. And when I saw him, when I really saw him, he didn't forget about it, he let it go. Yeah. But I was conditioned because of and this is the Christ child. This is the Christ child we're talking about now that's waking up, that came to this dimension, to this story, to find out. Can you imagine how many lifetimes the Christ child been through in different bodies from 2,000 years back, beyond that, beyond everything we've ever known about the past? Now this Christ child comes back to this story again to wake up another time. Each time we come to an event of waking up, the Christ child wake up, each evolution is cut shorter or more detailed for each one of the Christ child to let go of things. And this is only a story for the Christ child to wake up in.
Well, to be quite honest, there is no true evolution of the Christ
Thank
child,
you.
because he just is.
Thank
He's
you.
eternal. So just like
I'm
the
gonna come over and
scripture says,
slap you.
he knows the beginning and the end all at the same time.
He is. That's
So,
right. I'm gonna tell the
so
boss, Pastor
exactly.
Norman, I'm gonna tell the boss man to give you a raise. I'm gonna come in and slap you upside your head, boy. You know you're telling the that
I
ain't nothing
receive it.
like Miss Linda and all your little lenders out there. This man is telling you the truth. I'm gonna give you a raise.
When you go back to the thing that you're dealing with, as far as, and not only you, a whole lot of other people dealing with it, the dissolving of an aspect of your life. When that starts to happen,
We asked the truth, didn't we?
when that starts to happen, it is the undoing of the ego,
Undoing.
the
That's right.
egoic mindset, more so than it's not really a loss. It's,
Am I running my time?
yeah, you have to be there at 10 minutes after. And it's not one yet, but
Okay.
yeah, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
So when you're in that frame of mind, you have the tendency to think that you're losing, something's being taken from you, but in actuality, you are being freed from a lot of the things that you thought you needed in order to be complete. And so it has taken us 75, 76 years to come to the place of being okay with being nobody.
Yeah.
It's good.
Because we spent the entire first half of our lives trying to be somebody.
That's right.
And that goes back to what you were saying, Pastor Norman, trying to build an empire. You're going to be fine, sweetie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm going to have to run.
He's got an appointment.
I got to go. I got a doctor's appointment for my gynecologist, and I'm going to. I got to go get my.
Just go.
I can tell you, they're already going to misdiagnose you.
Oh, my Lord. Have mercy.
I got some things that need to be tied up.
Well, go and let him tie it. Go and let him tie it.
That is funny. That is funny.
He's crazy. Linda, let's see what Linda's saying.
Yeah.
There is only one infinite, unnameable reality modulating itself in the form of the world without ever ceasing to be itself, appearing as a world only from the localized perspective of finite mind. Where did you get that from? My goodness,
That's real good. And that's real good. And
there's about 3 or 4 sermons in that statement.
Yeah, but she gave the perfect description of what you was talking about Tuesday night concerning the avatar.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of us don't realize that we have been placed in the role of an avatar, because when we speak, and it comes from that intuitive wisdom that has just arisen out of us, not so much parroting what someone else said or repeating what someone else said, which is fine, and I understand that quote, repeating that, but when it comes directly from you as a revelation, you are then an oracle. You're speaking as an oracle, and you are then an avatar, because it is that I call it fresh baked bread out of the oven that people really hear.
Exactly.
It's that revelatory word that people really, really hear.
And that's when the revelations begin to come, not only out of relationship, but the revelation becomes more when things are being dissolved in your life. And see
Yes.
I love how you said that, because one of the things that we are guilty of when things are being dissolved, or there's a transition that's happening in our life that is bringing us out of our normality or whatever, we deal with the projections of what people project on us now, like,
Mm-hmm.
or you failed, or God done took his hand off of you, or even like,
Yeah.
with a lot
Yeah.
of these, not just myself, but
Yeah.
others as well. Maybe you did something wrong, or you're out of the will of God. They come up with all these different projections.
Mhm.
They even mention about dealing with a midlife crisis, not understanding that there is a evolution that is occurring, and it has
Mhm.
nothing to do with missing God. It has nothing to do with failing. In all actuality, it is the will of God.
Yes.
Because now you
Yes.
come into a place of awakening. Like with myself, I use myself as an example. If I was operate under the former conditioning, right now I would be a miserable person. I would feel like I failed God. I would be going to God praying, crying.
Mhm.
What did I do wrong? This, that, and that. And I'm not. I am so comfortable and complete at this moment that even as I made the decision to go back virtual, it's not causing this arising of emotions with me. I'm good. I'm just as
Yes.
happy,
Yes.
satisfied as can
Yes.
be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's a good thing. But what you've learned to do over the course of time, because if you don't do it, you cause yourself so much suffering. You've learned to question your thoughts, and then you've decided what you're going to believe that your mind is predicting and what you're not.
Mhm.
And a lot of us don't disassociate enough with from the mind in order to know when we're being molested by the mind. And
Right.
so when those the predictions of the mind come of the bad thing that may be happening, that that is when the mind needs to be questioned, and realizing that it, because of the nature of the mind, when you know the nature of the mind, you realize that is not what I am, and so you do disassociate with it, and then you find yourself at peace, or at least content with what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
so
That's
it's
freedom. That is freedom.
that is true freedom, true
Uh,
freedom. And
mhm.
I remember and I don't know if I should mention this or not, but yeah, there's this pastor that you mentioned last week that's very, very, very legalistic, and I know
Woo,
you know who I'm
yes.
talking
I know
about.
exactly what you're talking about.
Even told a little girl, 10-year-old girl, wrote into his program and asked was she allowed to wear braids, and he took scriptures and showed her and proved to her that she should not be wearing braids, that God would not accept her wearing braids. I mean,
That's
just absolute what do you call it? Idiocy.
yep. Idiocy. That's exactly idiocy.
So, like you said, we've taken the opportunity, or our egos have taken the opportunity to build empires and our own little kingdom, and we've taken it and used people as building blocks. We've
Exactly.
used them as stepping stones to step up on them, and so for this little 10-year-old girl to go out believing that she could not wear braids because God would not accept her, that is crazy.
It is.
Absolutely crazy.
And what's so sad about it, and I think I said this last week, it's so sad. And I'm going to say this. I don't care if I even meet him one day. Bottom line, I know the word just as bad, just as good as he knows the word. I mean, that's how he knows the Bible.
Yeah.
But what he's not being honest about is that you're projecting to the people that are following you from a European translation. Just like you just
Mhm.
showed the picture of Jesus, all right?
Mhm.
You're using what was presented to you, and you're not even admitting how we here in America have received Christianity from Europe,
European
where
point of view.
we ain't even going back to where it all began. You see what
Yes,
I'm saying?
yes,
And
yes,
so he is truly legalistic. He don't he is obvious that he's out of touch with the spirit of God,
yes,
because there is no way in the ministry of Jesus that he took the word of God and went up, beat people up, tear people down with the word. That is not, where is the love? You see what I'm
no,
saying?
yeah,
Yeah, I don't agree with certain lifestyles and stuff like that, but he never sent us out to condemn people. Even the word says that. Jesus didn't come
yes,
to condemn, but that the world may be saved through him. And so it really gets, I'm gonna be honest with you. Every time, it pops up on my phone or I listen to him, it gets to me because I'm like,
yeah,
man, this is not
yeah,
God.
yeah. It's damaging, but at the same time, I have to say that I am glad that there are so many in the business of getting people to reconnect with God, even if it's in a lot of misunderstandings and error. I am glad for that, because there are some that need that confine of legalism in order to not abuse themselves
Exactly.
or abuse other people at the same time. So some people are not, and it's a broad statement that I'm about to make, but some people don't flourish in the atmosphere of freedom.
And that's good that you said that, because see, again, in Paul's writing, and if you really break it down to people, all right, and the word legalistic keeps coming up. Well, remember, there was presented to us, especially in the New Testament, if you choose to walk according to the law, being legalistic, then you have to do everything,
Every jot and tittle. Yes.
everything according to the law. But we're
Mhm.
not saved by the law; we're saved by grace.
Yes. Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you have to make it, am I going to walk and abide in the grace of God, or am I going to become carnal to the point where I got to make sure I'm walking line upon line, precept upon precept, being legalistic?
Yes.
You see what
That.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
There's
if
another.
people do that now, then people that's caught in adultery, they're supposed to be being stoned.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
that's the law. See, that's what I'm
mm-hmm.
saying. He is saying stuff that he's not giving quite great revelation and insight concerning what's being said in the transition of
Yeah.
scripture.
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, some are believing that God is a punisher and that God is a hard taskmaster when it is not what God is at all. And I was thinking about what Linda uh, put here that Rupert Spira said. Rupert Spira, I listened to him the other day. And have you ever listened to Rupert Spira?
I have, I have.
Yes, he's very good. But he gave me some insight, because the three of us as pastors come out of, we're in the Christian religion, so that's our circle, and the section of Christianity that we're in is the evangelical charismatic section. But he made a comment, because he's a non-dual teacher and has also studied the Course in Miracles to a degree, and teaches that non-duality or oneness and consciousness message. But he said he has gone back. He has of late. He's going back to his Christian roots, and
Mhm.
he's looking at Christian mysticism more so now, because he finds that it resonates with him in a different way. When we find out that we are infinite, we are awareness, we're the essence. When we say those words don't take any form. They take no form. It is difficult for those of us who have come through, uh, in the sense of Jesus was our Savior, and coming from that angle, accepting God and accepting Jesus into our hearts. and then receiving that Holy Spirit, there were forms that our minds could have a concept of.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the devotion that we could partake in of, and being in that, having a devotion toward God, and not as separate from me, but having a relationship with God as an other,
Mm-hmm.
is different from seeing God here as one,
Exactly.
which is still devotional, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't give me the opportunity to devote myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know if I'm making myself plain at all, but I
In essence, you're saying that dealing with conditioning or the conditioned man, we need someone outside of ourselves in order to
to
walk in
devote
true
to,
devotion. Yeah.
yes, the way of the heart. And well, I'll put it like this: there is the way of the mind. The mind wants to gather information, wants to hear truth, it wants to open up to truth. The heart simply wants to connect.
Mm-hmm.
It wants to connect, it wants to feel, it wants to uh, worship. And so sometimes my heart wants to worship God as an other.
Exactly.
So it
Exactly.
feels like I heard a lady say that it feels like I'm betraying unity.
Exactly. That's good. That's
Mhm,
good. Mm-hmm.
mhm. Feels like I'm betraying unity, but I'm not. But and so I heard one spiritual teacher say this: is that you don't have to be monochromatic. Monochromatic in the sense that you don't have to say it's got to be this way or that way. It's
Mm-hmm.
whatever's coming up in you at the moment. If you're feeling like you want to worship and have devotion toward God, and it feels like God is an other in a relationship with God, then do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if at the same time you're realizing that is sitting here is God, that is sitting here is the essence of God, then do that. So it's like it's just not trying to figure out how you're going to be
Exactly.
in your interactions with God or
Well,
in spirit.
actually, what you just revealed was what Philippians 2 talks about. Let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. That
Yeah.
even though he thought it not robbery to be equal with God, he took on the mere form of man for no reputation. So, in all actuality, when we go through that emotion or that state or whatever, it's
Mm-hmm,
actually
mm-hmm,
a
mm-hmm. Yes.
humbling phase
Yes.
because it keeps us, even though we know we're one with God and we're in total unity or oneness with him, better word, oneness with him, it also humbles us so that we don't allow the ego to
Yeah.
participate in that and make us think that we're some great special one or whatever. So it's a humbling process in there as well.
It definitely is. Let me see what Linda's talking about here. I know we're over time, and Linda says, I love that above quote of Rupert's. I like that too. He said, it makes things clear how the world is an illusion or dream. Everything in form takes place in the finite mind. And that's exactly right. It's also clear how all things are possible. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I, I I think one of the main things that would kind of sum up what we've been discussing today is what Jesus said to the woman at the well. God is seeking for those that will worship him in spirit
And in truth. Yeah.
and in truth. And so I don't think mankind as a whole has been able to comprehend what it means to be in spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what it is because that is our true reality. We're so used to residing and flowing in the carnal realm versus the spiritual or the supernatural realm. It's normal for us. Just like for example, I think we talked about this last week, or I was sharing it with somebody about our human nature. That when we're born, you don't
Mhm.
have to teach a child to be quote unquote what we call bad.
Right.
It's in them naturally. They gonna do it. So we are now trying to train them how to be good. you know,
Yeah.
they gonna be bad. You ain't got to teach a child to be
Yeah.
bad, but
Yeah.
it's hard to teach them how to be good.
Yeah, and most of that we call bad is really curiosity.
Exactly.
Curiosity.
Exactly.
And that's why I said the narrative in Genesis kind of makes me realize that it cannot all be uh, accurate, in the sense that why would God put a tree in the garden that He knows curiosity is going to lead us to, and
Well,
say
well,
don't touch it.
and I hope this don't rub people the wrong way, but for years, this ain't just now. For years, even before we got on the talk of enlightenment, even before people started, we started talking about all these different things during the past, through the midst of the pandemic and everything like that. For years, I kept saying to myself over and over and over again, it could have been just a tree. I'm just being honest. To me, it could be just it had to be something more than a tree with a fruit, and you just
With
eat
an
the
apple.
fruit. It got to be more, because if that's the case, then that lets me know that Greek mythology is in line with what we read in Genesis. You see what I'm saying? So it to me, it had to be more. Had to be more than just a tree. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, Pastor Norman, and I know you would agree with me, but I don't think any of us really know what happened in the very beginning.
Exactly.
We have our speculations and our theories, but we don't really know what happened in the very beginning. And if there was a beginning, in order for something to begin, that means that it had to first come out of rise up out of something. And we know that God is the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
God itself is the beginning. And so it's just really interesting that we are living in an age now where we don't have to be confused about, we don't have to have the wrong imagery or the wrong concepts of what God is or what we are. We don't have to live in that the old mindsets of the what I said called the old saints and how they perceived God. We can move forward. We can move forward and pay it forward, and help other people to see who they are and how God relates to us now in this 21st century. And it's totally different from when I was a little girl, totally different. And so I want people to be freed from the illusion, as Linda mentioned, freed from the illusion of believing certain things that are not true. And so hopefully you got something out of what we talked about today.
If they didn't, I did.
I did too. I did too. But I'll tell you what I've begun to do, Pastor Norman, and I'm a firm believer in being transparent. Is I'm coming to the place of asking myself, what is it that I know about myself that is not relative to my body, it's not relative to my mind or my feelings. It has nothing to do with any accumulated knowledge that I may have obtained. What do I know about myself that I can say is what I am? I can only say, if I strip everything else away, I can only say that I am.
Yes. And I'm glad you said it, because that was the part I was going to say, where with myself, that's the thing that I run through my mind. Well, I can't even say my mind, but that goes through me, or the impression I get. Who am I really without all these attachments?
Mhm, mhm,
That's what I want to know. Who
mhm.
am I? And like you said, all you can say I am. That's all you can say.
Yeah, yeah. Linda mentions this. And yes, I totally agree with what you're saying, Linda. She says, I think it was the tree of the knowledge of duality. It was,
It
because it
was.
said of good and
And
evil. So it
evil.
was duality.
And
Yeah,
but
opposites,
see,
opposites.
and the part that gets me, and I don't know if it get any other Bible scholar, theology, theologian, the part when God said, because they ate of the tree, they now become like us.
Yeah.
See, that's the part that gets me. So I didn't take on a God like nature because they know good and evil. He said they not because they know good and evil, they're now like us.
Mhm.
That's the thing that keeps getting me.
Well, you know what gets me is who is the us?
Exactly. Exactly. Because
Who
they're
is
now
the
this big old
us?
thing, just like the person we were talking about earlier who was coming against, the idea of the Trinity. And to me, I could care less. It's different expressions of God. It's more that I mean, we just get into these
Yes.
debates over stuff that's really insignificant and so forth. But that's the thing I say also. Who's the
Yes.
us?
Who
Was
is
he
the us?
talking to was he talking to himself, the triune being, or was he talking to the angelic host? Who was the us?
Who is the us?
Exactly.
So they have become like us, but who is the us?
Hmm.
Let us make man in our image. Who is the our? I want to know who the us is. So the narrative, of course, should be questioned.
Hmm.
So and again, I think what we're to sum it all up, what we're saying is nothing should be taken literally until it has been sought out and researched
Hmm.
and to be taken as absolute truth. We have for centuries used the Bible as a history book, and that is not
Oh,
what
it's
we're
good.
supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
It is
Exactly.
not, God didn't give us that book for history's sake. But
Exactly.
we, because a lot of Christians still believe that the earth is only 6,000 years old, and that's ridiculous. This earth has
And,
been here billions of years.
and from the time I was born and going to church and hearing the preacher preach, we always keep saying over and over again, over 2,000 years ago. 2000 now by now it's been more than 2,000 years ago, but we still use 2,000 as the reference point even now. And so I'm
The,
like,
the
okay, when
oldest
did that
rock,
change?
the oldest rock on this earth is billions of years old.
Exactly.
Billions of years old.
Exactly.
So how can we say that a religion that is only 2024 years old can actually be the absolute truth for
Exactly.
every last one of us on this earth
Yep.
for
Because even
billions of years? So, anyway, we can get on that soapbox and stay on it forever.
oh yeah, because I can go into detail with Genesis chapter 6 to show them that there have been different beings and entities that roam the earth
Mhm,
that will be considered
mhm,
demigods and all. That's what I'm saying.
mhm, mhm.
We're not discussing those things. We just want to preach
Yeah,
Christianity, but not discussing stuff that's actually in the Bible.
yeah. And who are the watchers?
Who's the watchers and Daniel?
Who
That's
are the
exactly
who are the ancients?
exactly
Hmm.
exactly.
Hmm.
Who
And
who are
what?
these creatures that have a face like a bear, face like a lion? You see what I'm saying? Come on.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that that may never be uncovered, but should be uncovered. And
Mhm.
I'm praying inwardly, not outwardly. I pray inwardly for the evolution of the church because it is the slowest to evolve. Religion has been the very slowest to evolve, and unfortunately, a lot of people are bound in religion.
Mhm.
They're bound in religion. Not so much that it doesn't help some, it helps people, but at the same time, it binds people. It doesn't allow them to be free. And we should be able to think for ourselves. We shouldn't have church brain where we can't think for ourselves. And I think, unfortunately, that's what's happening with that minister that we've been talking about. People
Mhm.
aren't being able to think for themselves, they can't think for themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway, Pastor Norman, we could carry this conversation forever. Thank you guys for tuning in to see us today and to hear us. Pastor Sawyer had to go out for an appointment. He'll be back with us next time with his crazy self. He's crazy as a bed bug. I don't know
Yeah,
if we should
yeah,
go
crazy.
online or not. He shouldn't be online. I told him, I said, we'll never be nationally known because we would not fit the mold. But
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
He's a sweet pie.
In order for him to be like you just said, he would have to have certain parameters that he would have to abide in, which means we would be putting
Lord.
him in a box, and that would not be good to him because he is totally free. He's free.
He's totally free.
Yeah.
They would have to try to remold that rascal.
Exactly, because
it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. But I love him. He's the same as you see him right here. He's like that all the time. That's him.
That's a true statement.
So he's a good person. He's a really good person. We miss him when he's not here with his crazy self. But anyway, we'll see you guys next Thursday. The Lord doesn't change anything and the creek don't rise. We'll be back again next Thursday at 12. I kind of like coming at 12. What you think?
That's good with me. That's fine. Hey, but 30 minutes earlier. So
we might just change it to 12 instead of 12:30. But I think a lot of people gotten used to our time. But we just anyway, we'll talk about that later. Linda, thank you, sweetheart, for saying it's a good chat. And thank you guys for staying with us and listening to us today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.